Okay.
Okay, I gotta push my little got it. Hi.
Hi, we did it.
We did it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Freedom Exchange Sunday edition. And we are back in action after a month of a lot of transition. Last time we were together, Christy and I were in the studio together in Oregon. Now I'm in Oregon by myself.
Oh,
And Christy is in.
Louisiana. Isn't that funny? I'm in Louisiana.
My
Who
favorite
would
is you can see the Superdome out your window. That is my favorite part.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
pretty
And
great.
today's the LSU game, and I swear everyone's in purple, and there's thousands of people raging. It's
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yes. So
Well,
I'm here.
welcome everybody. This is our first time doing it this way, so thank you for your patience. And we have a really awesome guest. His name is Maurice Clifton, and he is just next door to her in Mississippi. So this is wild. We have gone national. We've officially like spanning the country now. So one day when we do our tour to go see all of our friends and guests, we'll be even more national. But
That's gonna be
um,
exciting. I
I
can't wait
know. It's gonna happen.
yes.
So Christy, do you want to share what the Freedom Exchange is? You have a few things you want to share and tell us about New Orleans.
Well, the Freedom Exchange, we welcome everyone that's here. And again, like Allison said, thank you for your patience and working with us. We were in the beginning, we started like in the kitchen, like balancing the computer, and then we got fancy in the studio, and then now I'm back in the house trying to find a place to do it. But I'll get there. But the Freedom Exchange was birthed out of the desire to bridge communities, to amplify voices of those who've been incarcerated or those working with those incarcerated, so that people who've never experienced it can know the humanity of it and the atrocities that go on. And so we just want to bring that to everybody's attention. And the great thing about it was we have a lot of people that watch that have never been incarcerated. In fact, our sponsor for this show is a gentleman who is a police officer and started watching the show. And I think he's been showing it to the people that works under him, which is amazing. That's like, that's my heart. And so he wanted to donate and asked about it. And so that's so amazing, just getting the message across. And now me being here in New Orleans in a whole different environment, it's so needed. So that I'm going to be on steroids doing this kind of work. So thank you all
Awesome.
for being
Yeah.
here.
We're
Yeah.
so glad to be doing this. And just to touch on our sponsor a little bit more, um, he's been so moved by listening to these stories and listening to the idea that when he is apprehending somebody that has broken the law, to look at that person as more than just the person that's broken the law, but this person has a story. They have variables in their life that have put them where they are. Not that they're excuses, but it's about having compassion and empathy to try to understand the humanity behind somebody and not just look at them as a lawbreaker, but talk to them. And that's something he's shared with me, that he's had conversations. He's actually had follow-up coffee dates with people he's apprehended, because he has this different perspective now on how he wants to engage and learn about them. And it's been very powerful. And I think if this show does that for one situation like that, it can happen in all sorts of ways that we may never know. But that is our momentum and our motivation to keep moving forward with the Freedom Exchange. So pretty
Yeah, and it
powerful.
seems it seems obvious that they're a human, but when you're doing a job, you're just doing a job and you forget because you have people above you, or you just need to get this job done. But then when certain things are highlighted, maybe at the certain moments that someone can take that in and receive it, it's magical. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
super.
thank you to the unnamed
Yes,
friend in Oregon. Um,
anonymous. Yeah, thank you.
so I would, that's a great segue into our guest. So this always blows my mind every time I hear a story like this, which unfortunately is super, super prevalent, is a first time nonviolent drug offense can get something like 33 plus years in prison for the amount. It has to do with the amount of drugs that were involved. But in our story today, there was no proof. He was not caught with anything. It was just from hearsay, and you can literally get 33 plus years in prison because someone said you were somewhere doing something. And it's really hard to wrap your brain around, but it's what happened. And Maurice is going to share some of that story with us today. And if you can imagine where that takes somebody, and we're going to talk about shame. We're going to talk about reentry and how you move forward. We're going to talk about how you reunite with a family after you've been gone for 33 years and you have kids. So we're going to get into all of it.
And yes, I have one thing, you know, I always do. Wait. Well, because even if there was proof, who deserves to be in prison for 33 years? They better have done some really bad, evil, heinous shit.
And there's no bodies in the ground, and you can still get 33 years. We've talked about that a lot.
That's the thing. I mean, that's because a lot of, so that's bad. So, and you love Maurice.
Yeah. Should we invite Maurice in?
Yes, I'm going to try to do that.
Christy is on full tech girl over there on her own.
I think I got it. Okay. We are on fire. Thank you.
Hello, Maurice.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Maurice. Welcome.
Hey,
welcome. Good to have you today. We just did a little intro on you, and I cannot wait to get into your story and share not just your story, but everything that goes around it for you as a person, and how you've moved through this and come to where you've come today. So we're really excited to highlight all of that and let you share.
Yeah, I am. I'm glad to be here. I thank you guys, for making it happen. And so I heard so much about the Freedom Exchange from Amy and everybody, Malik and everybody who I hope is here today. He promised me that he would be tuning in. So it's just great to be here.
He will, and he'll be texting us, and we'll be trying to look at our phones. And
he'll be telling us what we're doing wrong.
And he'll tell us what questions to ask you. And
That's
but
fine.
We turned him off. We turned him off tonight.
I turned my Malik notifications. Just kidding, Malik. He's probably like, stop. Okay. Well, I think that my first question is kind of an obvious one, but it sets the stage for where we're going to go today in our conversation. So would you feel comfortable just sharing kind of how the 33 years came about and whatever led up to that day for you?
Okay. Well, it was me coming from Arkansas and getting arrested by the IRS initially. I initially got arrested in Lake Village, Arkansas by the IRS for tax evasion. The IRS took me to Mississippi without a warrant. When I get to Mississippi on January 15th, it's changed from tax evasion to aiding and abetting the sale of 6.4 grams of cocaine, which is about the quarter size of cocaine. And as a first-time offender, I'm like, okay, I got denied bond, and I didn't see freedom from January 15th, 1997, until January 10th, 2020. So it's actually 23 years. I got sentenced to 33 years, right, but I served 23 years of those and came home under the First Step Act, which was championed by Cut 50 and Van Jones. So here I am.
Could you share what the First Step Act is, just in brief, for our listeners that aren't aware?
The First Step Act was like, they had a series of things where Congress said that the crack cocaine penalty was, how can you say it, was different, or
the disparity. The disparity.
The crack disparity was not necessarily racialized, but it was just a great disparity when there was no chemical makeup, no chemical difference between powder cocaine and crack cocaine.
Right.
So when I got sentenced, it was 100 to 1, being if I had 1 kilo of cocaine, and if it was crack, they would charge me with 100 kilos of cocaine.
Yeah. So
I would get sentenced to a far greater penalty, and it also carried the mandatory minimum. So what the Fair Sentencing Act did was, the first thing that happened was the crack cocaine disparity, and that moved it to 18 to 1, but they didn't make it retroactive. It came about in 2005. So from 2005 to 2020, I was fighting to get out because I should have came home in 2005 when they changed the guidelines, but they didn't make it retroactive. So it only affected people who got sentenced in 2005 forward, not all of us who were who are still back there. There's still a lot of guys left behind between 1994 under the 1994 crime bill up until 2005 who haven't received the benefit of the First Step Act or the Fair Sentencing Act. So the First Step Act, in retrospect, made the Fair Sentencing Act retroactive to apply to people before 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it reduced your sentence.
Right.
And
it
then
reduced my sentence, and I received immediate release on January 10th. So,
what was that like?
I want to hear, will you share that story about that day and how you didn't get the news and how that went down?
Oh, man. I was actually happening Friday, January 10th. It was one of the, not necessarily the worst week, but it was one of the worst days it's in the top 5 of my worst days out of my 23 years in prison. Man,
Which year? Which year was that?
This was January 10th, 2020. About 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Wow,
a little over 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm newly home. I'm newly fresh home. Anyway, that morning, January 10th, 2020, I got up. I remember I always call my girlfriend, who's my wife now. I used to call her on Friday. You know, every morning, like every other morning, we just talk before I go to work. So she had to get up and go. She's a school teacher. Well, she was a school counselor then. And we would just talk about different things and stuff and pray about our day. But I was actually not wanting to go to work. It was cold. It was raining. I had my little poncho on. It was split down the middle. I had staples in it. And I didn't want to brave the rain. I had to walk like 1.5 miles to get to work. And I just didn't want to go, you know, but I braved and I went to work and I decided I wasn't going to do anything that day. But I remember her.
I have days like that too.
Yeah, who doesn't?
But I remember Jessica asking me, had I heard anything, you know, pretty much. So we always touch bases on a Friday, because if you don't hear anything on a Friday, you have to start over Monday waiting to hear news from the court or anything like that. And I remember just telling her, no, I hadn't heard anything, but everything's going to be in God's timing. So, you know, it'll happen when God says it's time to happen, and nothing will stop it. And so I left and went to work, and it was rain. I was soaking wet, you know, bent over facing the rain, walking, the wind was whipping. I got to work and I decided I wasn't going to do anything. So I sat at my desk all day in Unicorn, and I just was in no man's land. Like I'm at my desk now, didn't want to do anything. So I just kind of wrote a little poetry and just wrote some notes down in my life of what I wanted to do when I got home. Unbeknownst to me, you know, we go to lunch about 11 o'clock. Unbeknownst to me, I'm already free. The judge signed my order at about 10:30 that morning.
Gosh.
So I'm having this rough day in prison. So we walk to lunch, 1 mile, like 3/4 of a mile to lunch, back to the dormitory to go to chow. I didn't even want to eat. That's the kind of day I was having. So I grabbed my apple off my tray and gave away my tray. They had fried fish, and I love fish, so I couldn't even eat. That's the kind of day I was. So I walked back to my locker, just, you know, stood up at my locker. And I remember trying to call her at lunch. She hadn't heard anything, I hadn't. And so we just chatted for a few minutes, and I told her I was going back to work. I ended up walking back to work, not doing anything, sitting in Unicorn, and we were scheduled to leave. We always leave work at 3:30. So about 2:30, my old boss came over. His name was Robert Weaver. He was from the Unicorn over at the Low. And he said, what are you doing here? I said, what do you mean? He said, the guys told me last week that you had got immediate release. I said, well, as you can see, I'm still here. He said, man, they're going to be let down, you know, me telling them that I saw you and you're still here. I said, wait, today is Friday. I said, it's not 4 o'clock, so I still got time. He said, yeah, that's all he said, and walked out like, yeah, right. If you ain't heard nothing now, you won't hear anything. But I don't know why I said that. And I don't know what made me say that. I guess it was just the universe telling me, you know, you're already free. But I'm walking in, and we get back closer to the unit. As we get closer, me and a few guys walking, a lot of guys start telling me, hey, got the officer looking for you, and the secretary been calling your name on the loudspeaker forever. You know, I said, okay. You know, I said, what they want? I said, I don't know. You know, I said, go up and see. So I went to see the officer. He had my name on a post-it note. I see my name and my number. And I seen the version of CID in there looking. They had everybody's locking that they were shaking down. I said, well, okay, that's not good. So when I left out and go to the secretary office, I knocked on her door, and she says, who are you? I said, I'm Clifton. She said, oh, she said, come in. She said, I got good news and I got bad news. I said, okay, it's all news. So give it to me. She said, the good news is that the judge signed your order today and gave you immediate release. He said, today, Mr. Clifton, you're a free man, and handed me the papers. I said, well, if that's the good news. What's the bad news? She said, the bad news is we got to get you out by 4 o'clock. She pointed to the clock. So it's about 3:10, 3:15 then. I said, that's not bad news. Just give me my papers and I'll walk home.
Yeah.
So,
That's
Arkansas,
awesome.
I didn't care. I would walk home then after all that time. So she said, no, it's not like that. We got to fill out the paper and, and so goes the story.
That's awesome. What were your, I know this is probably a question you've been asked a lot, but what were your standout moments, like your memories today of those first moments or days when you were out? Like what was so different? What was hard to kind of acclimate to?
I think some of my best moment was walking out, and it had been raining all week. And for a brief moment, it quit raining and the sun came out. And I was, for me, I thought that was my mom and my son. I had just lost a son a month and a half earlier. And so I thought that was my mom and son shining down on me at that particular moment of my freedom, And, it's God saying, welcome home, my son.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing, I guess it was so many with family, and then I didn't get a chance. I remember talking to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and telling her, so she lived in Jackson, and I was 2 hours away from where she was, and I got a chance to see her that Sunday. That Saturday I first got out, my family had organized this surprise party that we had at a restaurant called No Way Jose, and a lot of them had came down and came over to see me because I had been gone so long. There were a lot of kids that were born while I was gone. So a lot of them was there. We had a lot of them at a dinner, that night, that Saturday night. And so those are some
No
of the
Way Jose. That's a perfect name. Like No Way Jose.
No Way Jose.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Christy, jump in anytime. I have like 5,000 questions.
Well, I have one question. Just, it takes a minute to transition into knowing when you're going to leave, like when in advance, like people start pulling away from you. This was my experience, and just processing, okay, I'm getting out, what my next steps are, and you didn't have any of that. So that you only had a half an hour, so that probably was a little more helpful, huh? Just like jump out the door and then there you are, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Didn't take anything. I always had a go bag. I had what they call a immediate release bag, a go bag. Like if I got immediate release, so I always kept that over the years. Especially from 2005, I kept me a bag with some pictures that I knew I was going to take, and just some things I knew I was going to take home. Everything else I was going to leave and give away. It didn't matter. I didn't care.
Did you have time? Did you have time to do that?
All I did was open my locker and tell the guys that they could have it. Have at it. So it was going to be.
That's amazing faith that you had a bag to go. Like, I know I'm going. God's going to make this happen. It just depends on the day. And you did that for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like
17, right? Well, 15, 2020. Yeah.
15. That's faith. That's
and
huge.
It seems like whatever's in your locker or your personal things are what you have. Those are your that's your life when you're there. And to be able to open up and say, have whatever you want. The perspective, it doesn't matter anymore. What's so much more is coming your way, and you can just release that. That's huge.
I can release it. It doesn't matter, gym shoes or whatever, headphones,
But they were your world when you were there.
I made cards. I gave it to another guy. I had been training him to make cards. I told him, I said, man, I'm leaving soon. He like, but with a 20, 30 out date, he was like, yeah, he had shorter time than me. So I was teaching him how to make cards, but I gave him everything. I didn't bring any of my card stuff home. None of my cards I hadn't made already. I just released it, grabbed my bag, and that was it.
Christy made cards when she was incarcerated.
Wasn't
that your hustle? Didn't you trade them?
That was my hustle. Yeah. During Christmas time, man, I would make I made so many cards. I'm like, dang, I got to make a card for my family. I was making like a lot of cards, but then it's kind of nice knowing that this card is going to someone's children, that it was a special kind of
I made
thing.
Everything. Valentine's, Mother's Days, Christmas. I love you. Thinking
Oh.
of you cards. I'm gonna show you guys some of my cards one day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I
I would
would
love
love to
that. Take
see
some photos
that.
and text us. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, Maurice, if I were to go to where you were incarcerated and ask the officers, like, who is Maurice? What was his presence like in this space? How did he move around? How did he interact with everyone? What would people say? What would the officers say about you?
Well, they wouldn't know Maurice, but they would know Sippy. They
Oh,
call
that's
him,
right. Mississippi.
Sippy.
yes,
Yeah.
just Sippy. Well, most of
Yeah,
the people call
Mississippi.
him Sippy. So they would say that he was a hard worker. He was a champion for education because when I got off work in Unicor, I taught education class voluntarily. They would probably say that he's a fair referee, but makes horrible calls at times. And so they would just say that I minded my own business. I was never a troublemaker for staff. I organized a lot of reentry events, like job fairs and different programs, Black History program, Kwanzaa program, Women's Day program, anything that I could celebrate to take guys' mind off of incarceration, I would try to organize and arrange, for them to have.
That's
So
awesome.
I taught different reentry classes, resume writing, job interview skills, dress for success. I started 2 Toastmasters, one at Beaumont, and the first charter program inside of prison in Mississippi at Yazoo. So I started there. It was inside out. So I was served as the first president there. And, they would say that he was, a sharp guy and minded his business and just a hard worker.
That's awesome. That immediately, all the things that you just listed, and I'm sure there's more, but you seem to have a natural propensity to lead and organize and rally the troops and gather people together to enrich their lives, better their lives, add to their lives. So can you take me back to like 5th grade, 10-year-old Maurice? Did any of that show up in you like early on? Those same traits?
Well, elementary school, Maurice, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, I was a straight A student. And, throughout high school, except my freshman year. My freshman year, I guess, it's when the adolescent age is changing and you're struggling with different different hormones and everything. And
True.
you're trying to figure out who you are, as a teen going into, I guess, your adulthood, your preteen, your early adulthood. But 5th grade Maurice was a studious person who loved education, was to me was never really challenged in the educational system, because I would always study at school. Once I heard it, I had it. Once I learned it, I got it. And I used at that time, believe it or not, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I used to love writing poetry. So I wrote a lot of poetry. I love reading literature like Annabelle Lee, Robert Frost, the different poems, at that age. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
It's beautiful. So you've just kind of been a lifelong learner. It started young and you found ways to continue that when you were incarcerated. So Christy, we talk a lot about transferable skills.
Yeah, I have a question about, is there anything that could have been done to make you do something different to be a successful educator or to go in a different realm? Because we have a lot of people that watch this show that have never been to prison. And so I like giving people just some information about like what would make Maurice, a straight A student reading literature, go this way. I mean, I know why I went that way. I'm curious if there's something you
I
can
think I've never been a smoker or a drinker. And I think that finding out that there's so much money in the streets as opposed to going to school, so at a young age, while I was in college in Chicago, the streets allowed me to make more money than I probably could ever make in real life, at a real life job. So me taking the shortcut, I think it was a distractive moment in my life, whereas I chose the fast life. I chose the shortcut. Instead of going the long way around, finishing school, and being able to sleep easy at night. The thing about taking the shortcut, there are so many hidden dangers on that path that you only, sometimes people only get one chance. There are people who are incarcerated only got one chance. They have a life sentence.
Yeah.
There are people who chose the short life that didn't live to see 25, 30 or 40 or 50. And so there are so many hidden dangers on that. And if I had to, if I had to do it all over again, there's no way I would choose fast riches over a safe transgression, and I could make just as much money and be able to sleep at night. I'm thankful for the journey because it taught me that the things that I was doing was destroying myself, my family, my community. Even though I didn't smoke or drink or use drugs, it was still destroying my family because it was setting them up and myself up from being torn away from them abruptly. And nobody can replace those years. Nobody can replace that time. There's no amount of money that they can give me to replace that time. And so the lives lost, the hurt, the pain, the loneliness, the mental anguish of incarceration, there's nothing that could replace that.
Well, and so you are the 20th child born of 23, correct? You're the last boy that was born in your family. So that's
say that again.
So Maurice, correct? You're the 20th child born of 23 children, and you were the last boy of those 23.
Right.
And that's a lot of people in front of you that lived in your house and had your parents and chose paths in their life and had experiences. So what was happening as you were maybe taking the easy path with your siblings? Were there other siblings that were taking the same path, or were they trying to hold you accountable? How did that work with so many older siblings?
Well, a lot of them didn't know because a lot of them had left. They were in Chicago. When I started hustling, I was actually in Chicago, but no one would believe, because that I was in the streets.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much throwing the rock and hiding my hand. Until later on around, I guess, 1994, 5, and 96, to where some of the things I was having, I would have to be pretty close to $1.5 million, and I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything. So pretty much there was nobody at that time, was saying that, you could either lose your life from this or you could do anything like that, because, I was kind of helping my family and I was doing a lot of things for my family, but still, I didn't really sell drugs in the daytime. I only sold drugs at night. Not that that justifies anything, because I didn't want any kids that looked up to me to see me selling drugs. So I never wanted to be, I've never given any kids drugs. I've never robbed anybody. I've never took anything that wasn't mine. And so to me, it was a business. It was a business just like the grocery store I had. It was just, buying and reselling product. That's how I looked at it. So I didn't try to take the other side of the game that's out there, but I know that there were always bosses in the midst waiting and circling for me to, to succumb to the streets or to be the prey to take me out in the streets. So, for them, I guess, my mom, I think deep down inside, my mom knew, you know what I mean? Because my mom would always drop jewels. She would drop everything in scripture or codes. She would tell me that God sees everything. And sometimes you're going to have to pay for the wrong that you've done. It might not be today, it may be something later on in life. So, she said, baby, just turn back and get on the path to the Lord. She used to always tell me, just turn around path to the Lord.
Isn't it amazing how we, and because I'm in that same boat, can justify like doing this kind of business? Like I literally was thinking it was like, I used to be a wardrobe stylist, and it was business, it was sales. And I was so in it, I wasn't even thinking about it until some bad stuff happened. And I'm like, oh yeah, what am I doing? So it's just interesting how we can disconnect from ourselves and from our heart and our God-given,
intuition,
soul intuition, and do this thing on the side. And then I have a question about incarceration. So how long would you say, like, you were in the middle of doing what you were doing, and then what do you think would have been an appropriate sentence for you to have, like,
Change of heart,
gotten
change.
out and do what and be the man that you already are? Like, what kind of sentence would you think would have been appropriate,
I don't think
if
for
any?
as a first time non-violent drug offender, when I've seen people who commit murder get 3 years and they're home in 3 years, not even comparing the two. But at
Mhm.
the time with me getting caught with, I actually got caught with no drugs. That's just what I was charged with. There's never been any drugs in my case. There's never been any recorded transactions and or sales in my case. And so at that particular time, the police had to manipulate paperwork and witnesses in order to convict me. I think more or less my charge came from, I'm the one that got away. So we want to ensure that we pretty much teach them a lesson. But here's the thing: if there were a sentence at the time, there was a mandatory minimum. And even though I wasn't caught doing anything, but I knew all the things that I had done prior, uh, I think that if it was a mandatory minimum of 5 years, then that's what I should have got, 60 months.
Mhm.
Now I don't know if that would have per se taught me a lesson. I think that
Yeah.
when I was between between arrest and trial was enough to teach me that this is not where I wanted to be.
So there
And
was that amount of time made you go, oh, okay, this is, what am I doing? This is not what I want to do.
I hadn't even gotten any time. Just being arrested and the
Yeah.
embarrassment and shame that came upon my family in the time from January to my trial in March, and from January to July when I first went to federal penitentiary, was enough time for me to know this is not what I wanted to do. It's not worth it or anything, because that's a lonely state, preparing for your case. Depending on somebody else, your fate is in the
Yeah.
hands of somebody who doesn't care about you, pretty much,
Right.
attorneys or the judicial system, and the deck is stacked against you.
Yes.
They're playing, I got one card and they have 52. They got
Mhm.
51 with the jokers. So I didn't stand a chance, so.
So
What a
what
shame.
what emotions does that evoke in you when you're sentenced to, then you're in prison, and at some point you have to kind of accept and wrap your brain around, this is what I just got sentenced and this is what I'm doing. Can you share a little bit of that emotional journey? Was there like denial or anger? How did it start, and where did it evolve by the time you came out?
Well, May 20th, that's my sentencing date. May 20th, 2020. Uh, a week before, there was a guy named Robert Ellis. He had got caught bringing 9 keys of methamphetamine and 1 key of crack cocaine from Arizona. He had been to the feds once, and he and I had the same judge in the
Mm.
Northern District of Mississippi. He went to court. They gave him 10 years. He had been to the feds once, and he had 9 keys of methamphetamine and 1 key of crack cocaine, and they gave him 10 years. So in my mind, I'm thinking, even though that I was going to get the 60 months that was the mandatory minimum, because I had more than 5 grams involved in my case, and to go into the sentence hearing May 20 and hear them talk about so-called ghost dope, not the
Mm.
6.4 grams I went to trial for, or what I got found guilty of. You tell me that they're out of court statement and I didn't have any co-defendants, so I was the only one on my indictment. So it gave me the IRS agent, Harry Bosch, gets up and says, he testifies at my sentence hearing that he's got written statements where there were 5 or more people that worked for me. Okay, where were they at? Why weren't they charged with me? So you give me the leadership role. So that puts me
Mm.
4 points. That enhances me 4 points. So I go automatically from 26 to 30. from 26 to 30. So that's enough category. That would have put me at like 10 years, between 10 and 12 years. And then to say that you had those same 5 people said that they bought cocaine from me from 1986 to 1996. You mean 10 years of lies that you have, because in 86, I was in Chicago all the way up until 1990 to 1991 when I moved back home. You mean to tell me I came home every day from Chicago to sell them cocaine and then go back to Chicago? It was just stuff that wasn't even logical.
Mm-hmm.
And then for them to hold me responsible from 6.4 grams that was entered in the evidence to 54 kilograms, that's the calculation that they came up with. And the judge only held me responsible for quote unquote. He said, well, since we don't have that much, we can't prove that much. We can rest assured that he at least had 1.5 kilograms, which was enough to trigger me to a level 42. So it moved me from 26 to 42 just from ghost dope or out of court statement in the leadership role. Well, it moved me to a level 38, then the 4 points put me at a level 42. And so that put me from 60 to 72 month category to 33 years to life. The judge actually said that he was doing me a favor by giving me the low end of 33 years. He said if they had to charge me difference, he could have gave me a life sentence. And to hear him say 33 years, so I said, okay, I'm pretty good at math. I said, okay, 10 years, 120 months, 20 years, 240 months. Okay, then I do the math. And I said, okay, it's not 30, it's 33 years. You gave me 400 months. So I said 360 is 33 years. Now I got to do the same thing with the leftover time, which is in essence the same as that. 40 months, I divide it up. It's 30 years, 3 years, and then, 4 months. So I'm like, how do I process it?
How do you wrap your brain
Well,
around
that's like
that
Kendrick.
number?
That's
like
what Kendrick got too.
Yeah.
Kendrick, I don't know if you know Kendrick
Fulton.
Fulton, he got 400 months. And and what makes me so mad is that then when people experience this, like you did, and the gentleman before you got 10 years, who was not his first time and the large quantities, and then how do you not, well, I know how, but you get you're watching crime happen between the prosecutor and the judge. I mean, they're just blatantly, doing criminal acts, and they have all the power, and you're just powerless. I mean, you have to have a spiritual, shift, or else, you would want to rage on people. I mean, I never knew I had that much rage in my body. I didn't know it was possible for me to have rage like that except when it came to this kind of thing and
Injustice.
the way it treated other women.
I think being able to maintain my temperament was, how can you say it, was solace for me, pretty much. Yeah. Being able to maintain that in that situation, because I knew that here's the thing. I had over 500 letters of support and recommendation from other judges, lawyers, teachers, coaches, everybody. I had so many letters that the judge said in open court that my community didn't know me. And I'm from an all black town called, in Mount Bayou. So I said, so you mean to tell me that 2 white DA agents and a white IRS agent know me better than my own community and my college coaches?
So all those letters were prior to getting sentenced? At
my sentence. He said he had some more. He said he had a ton. He had a ton more that he hadn't even opened and read.
Isn't that bullshit?
It is so bad.
Yeah.
That's what's his name?
Judge Neil Biggers.
He's gonna tell us.
Yeah, I want to know.
Oh, definitely. And and the guy, you got to remember, the first officer on my case went to prison in 2004. Ronnie Jones.
Oh, right.
He went to court for framing cases and extortion and bribery. From framing cases.
Did you say the first officer in your case? And that's who you're.
Federal prison.
Was there more than one?
Yes. The second one committed suicide when they brought him up on charges and they disbanded the task force, the federal task force that they were on that arrested me.
Maurice, that's just got to be like good, like feel like a little bit of okay, but no,
That
it's
makes me
so
so angry.
so not okay still.
That makes
Then the
me so
last one.
angry
Oh,
because
there's
there's so
another one.
many.
Yeah, the
Oh,
last
sorry.
one, Harry Bostic, the IRS agent that arrested me and brought me from Arkansas to Mississippi in his personal car. He got pardoned first by Governor Haley Barr. He went to prison in 2006, 2 years after the first one. He went to prison in 2006, got out, got pardoned by the governor in June or July of 2006, and ended up killing a college student on the way back to college in a drunk driver hit and run. And he got 8 years. It was his second vehicular homicide.
We're
The
mad.
first one, yeah. And so, you have all these people, and not one time did they call me back and look at my case. Why? Because it would still free so many people from Mississippi who were in prison, who are still incarcerated, behind this justice system.
Yeah. So my question off of that is Christy and I talk a lot about shame, and part of my personal story of being justice impacted is the shame my father went through. The place he stayed in after he was released from prison, and it took him down, and it took our family down because he couldn't find a way out of the shame of what he had done, or being the stigma of being incarcerated. And so what would you say to someone that served a long sentence or is getting ready to be released, about that shame piece of it that can paralyze you and keep you from thriving and growing in your own life once you've moved out of the world of incarceration?
I think that we have to realize that there are people who are free every day that are incarcerated.
Yeah.
They're incarcerated to jobs that they don't want to be at. They're incarcerated to relationships that they don't want to be in. So there is no shame for going through the penal system or the incarceration system, or being incarcerated. Man, what you got to do while you're inside, if you're still inside, you got to find a way to ensure that you never ever want to go back through those same steps or pathway again.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to recreate yourself. You got to transform yourself to somebody who's going to be able to take those transferable skills and put them on a resume and put them on a job, because the same job that you're doing inside of prison are the same job that you're going to do outside of prison. Mm-hmm. If you're a cook in the mess hall inside of prison, you're doing the same thing, if not more, at a restaurant on the outside of prison. If you're if you teach school, it's the same thing. If you're a tutor, then you're a tutor on the outside. Mm-hmm. So you got to take that and look at it. You have to, first of all, you got to stand in the mirror and accept responsibility. Even though the charge I went to prison on, I wasn't guilty of, I had to accept responsibility that at one time I was in the streets doing something that I wasn't supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Now, how can I fix this? Then I have to, hold up my head, pull my chest back, soak up all the knowledge I can to ensure that I don't make this, make this mistake again, or get caught up in the whirlwind or the door of recidivism. Then I have to ensure that I'm able to do a lot of things. I got certified in SAP. I got my ASQ certification. So I took those tests. I got certified as an auditor from the street, not from prison. I got certified as an auditor. I learned how to type. I learned Microsoft Excel as much as I could to ensure that I would have a full opportunity to be marketable in this job market. It doesn't matter. I'd rather cut grass 7 days a week than to stand up for 1 4 o'clock count.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather shovel whatever. Yeah. So it's just things that I would do than to be part of somebody's count where your whole life is controlled by people who are less educated than you, or, scum of the earth too, where they're doing something they're just not caught. So you got so many corrupt officers inside. Me and Malik and I were talking about that today. You got so many low-life officers inside that are bringing drugs inside to person who sold drugs on the outside.
So stupid.
You know what I
But then they
mean?
have all the power. Yeah. And there's another thing that I just want to bring up too. Unfortunately, women inside prison do not get the same opportunities for men. Like there's no Microsoft, there's no school. Like I always joke and say, I learned how to crochet a bear that was ugly. That's like the pinnacle of, education. So we're trying to kind of work on that, but like to be able to have those opportunities, at least to learn while you're sitting, while you're in prison, so important. And for women, it's not the same.
Yeah. But you still have people inside that have the same opportunity, but they won't take advantage. You know how many guys go to prison and come home, they go in prison without their GED and they come home still not having their GED? Like, what
Why
were
do you
doing?
think that? Why? What's your thought on that with all the guys that you met?
It's like three groups of people. It's one who come to prison to become a better criminal. They think that they're going to meet their plug, or they think they're going to get smarter.
Wow.
At another hustle. You got the guy who's content with being there. He's received a life sentence, and he's resolved to the possibility of him dying in prison. So he's not going to go to the library and fight. Then you got the guys who come in fighting to be free every day that they're in. So they spend their time fighting, and when they take a break from fighting, they're reinventing themselves. They're becoming a better person, a better version of themselves. They're learning everything, they're reading everything, and they're ensuring that they never come that way again. And and it's just like, people don't know that the same thing that you have on the street, you have in prison.
Mm-hmm.
You got cocaine, heroin, everything. The same drugs you have on the streets, you have in prison.
Yeah.
And they don't spend enough time on reentry and rehabilitation. It's more about punishment.
Yeah.
In the penal system. They're more about punishing us while we're there. Our punishment was the amount of time that we got.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be our punishment while we shouldn't be getting punished while we're inside. So the people who make the laws don't oversee. And the families, when a loved one goes to prison, it's automatic disconnect. I unplug the cord on them. You got to stay, if you love that person, you got to stay plugged into him. You know what I mean? You got to keep him connected to the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
Once you unplug from him, you just turn him loose as a criminal within the within the criminality system.
Yeah.
And you leave him to fend for himself. They need that same cars, love, and respect. Whether they roll back or not, I wrote my kids often. Whether they roll back or not, sooner or later, they would get it. And I would tell them, this is no place you want to be. Don't make the mistakes I made. So I wrote them constantly. I called them constantly. So I stayed connected with them. You know what I mean? And so now, my boys, they thank me for that. And they always see, my son, they always tell me, Dad, you were present. I never felt like I was without you. You were present even though you were away. And so that was big for me. So that lets you know I was doing the right thing, while I was there. I didn't just, I didn't succumb to the 33 years and say, I'm going to do this the best way I can, just try to say, so I fought every day, and it paid off. It took longer to pay off than most people did, but it paid off. And here I am today. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're free. You were a wonderful human. I'm so glad we get to know you. And
as you're talking, Maurice, I just keep thinking over and over again how your encouragement and everything you're saying right now about continue to better yourself, make yourself more marketable, change the things, the way you think, the things you do. I mean, who you're around, you keep doing those things so that when you're out, you wouldn't go back, but it would change your life and those around you. But I think that it just transcends being incarcerated. As you've started the whole thing, so many people that aren't incarcerated are incarcerated in their life based on things they're doing, shame that they have, actions, people that are around, they're stuck in whatever. And it is, how do you keep moving forward and bettering yourself and taking that class or going back to school or changing your environment? It doesn't have to happen because you're incarcerated. That same message is an encouragement to all of us, just in how we live our daily life. And so I love that you've been able to do that while you were there, with the classes you've taught and the things you started, and the celebrations the events you've created, and now you're out. And so I wanted you to share, because we love what you're doing right across the street, what's across the street, but what you're doing in your world today that's still all of those same things.
Yes, well, now I was blessed to when I came out, I did a lot of work in my community. I started like a men's group to where we would go into the community and clean up the community and help the elderly people. And so I got a lot of people on board with that. And since I've been out, I've been able to do some feeding the community. And there was a kid that I kind of mentored before I went to prison. Before I went to prison in the daytime, I would have basketball. I was a pretty good basketball player. So I would have tournaments in the park to where I would take free Gatorade. But the first thing that the kids had to do when they came out there, we would have to clean the park up. And we would set rules. There was no cursing or anything. It was always sportsmanlike conduct. And so a kid that I mentored was now second in command, and he gave me an opportunity to come on a job interview with the new commissioner, Commissioner Kane. And when I had my job interview in August of 2020, I got hired for the Mississippi Department of Correction as a chaplain. And so I work.
Love that.
Yeah, so I work here at the Mississippi State Penitentiary Department, and I have, over 500 or 600 guys that I'm responsible for as a chaplain. And so being able to go in there and be a beacon of hope for them, because I instantly tell them my story. I talk to them first, and then when I see they have a problem talking to people who don't know, who hasn't shared their pain. And so I can assure a lot of them that I've walked in their shoes. And so when I tell them some of the penitentiaries that I've been to, then they look, their eyes buck. I say, yeah, and so just knowing that there's hope, it changes the dynamic of how they think and how they feel about me. So they'll listen to me.
Yeah. There's nothing more powerful than you sharing a story, because you've walked through it. Again, this transcends incarceration. Christy and I, when we met, she was sharing her story with me, and it helped me with something that was completely different than that, but I was going through something very hard. And the fact that she shared her story first created a safety and a trust for her to come alongside me in my hard thing. And we've gone back and forth with that. And so for you showing up and sharing your story, showing them that it's okay to share your story, and there isn't shame in that. It's your growth moment. It's the opportunity that has come to you to change the trajectory of your life. And now you're a chaplain and you're touching hundreds and hundreds of people. That just makes my heart so happy.
And they have hope now. They have hope,
Yeah. And not only that, I not only share my story, I try to bring experiences that changes, that changes them. We had, Death Row had never been out together. I brought in Brittany Barnett. I don't know if you know who Brittany Barnett is.
We do.
I love her. Yeah, I'm going to get her on the show. She already said yes, so we'll just do a date. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, we did her book, A Knock at Midnight, for a book club on Death Row. And she came in and personally talked to the guys on the last session of the book club. And so that was powerful. So that opened up a lot of minds, and so I've had 2 concerts to come in, gospel group. They had never had concerts here. So we had live dance, and I scheduled those for guys and stuff like that, so it's, it's amazing. I brought in Fritzy in the trauma circle. So we did the trauma circle on Death Row and in another unit.
So good.
I bet that was powerful.
We should just throw that out there. If anybody wants to look up Fritzy Hortzman on YouTube, you can see the circle. What is the official full name of that?
What?
The circle that
Compassion
Fritzy does?
Prison Project.
Okay.
Step inside the circle.
I think, yeah. She called it the trauma circle when she was here. So
you can see them. You can see there's a video on YouTube, and it's so powerful to see these men, and it breaks your heart, but then it like inspires you. Oh, it's so beautiful. So we encourage you guys to look that up.
Yeah. And so I try to not only lead by example, I try to bring them people. I try to bring shared experience. I try to keep them connected to the outside world, because no matter how bleak your future looks now, it could change in an instant. For me, January 10th was an instant change.
Yeah.
You know, I went from black coffee to black coffee with, you know, sugar and cream. You know, so everything brightened.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean,
And that's so funny because that's the day I was arrested, January 10th, and that was not a good day for me.
Yeah.
I remember that
So-
day. I was
I'm going to be the whip cracker again. So we
Yes,
only have
yes.
like a couple minutes, and we want to do are you going to do our speed round, Christy?
Oh, you know what? I'm out of touch with that. I didn't even
Can you
think about-
remember anything?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we can-
before we do that,
Yeah.
I wanted to give you a minute, Maurice, to maybe talk about the banner behind you and all that, maybe show us the different things going on behind you.
Well, this is a lady that you had on your show. This is Amy Candu, you know, Amy Pova, you know, she served time campaign for me. I never forget the day that my kids contacted her and I contacted her. And I told her, she told me to give her 1 minute. I called her. She said, no, I'm not taking any more cases. That's it.
Yeah.
No, I'm done. So I gave her my story and I sent her, she gave me her email and I sent her all the things I had done. And she took on me as a last basket case, but she championed.
Hey, Amy.
We love
She fought
Amy.
hard. Yeah.
That's awesome.
This is with Demita White. Stones Will Cry Out. She does a lot of work inside of the prison system. She gives guys a chance to write their poetry, articles and stuff. It's Demita White. And then I have a guy to partner with since I've been home. That's with, I don't know, let me see, make sure you can see. King's Leadership with Cassio Batiste. He's here in Mississippi and he worked with troubled youth here in the Mississippi area.
Nice.
This is my gym that I created since I've been home. It's called Sail into Freedom. It's Mississippi's Advocacy, Initiative, and Leadership. And so this is what my nonprofit that I do work from here in the Mississippi area with kids. And so I had to get Amy 2 shots out. So I got her on my
She deserves 2. It's perfect.
She really does.
Yeah.
And this is my little podcast and also my clothing line that I'm going to be coming out with. It's called Too Black. It's also the name of my first book that's on Amazon. My first book that's on Amazon. This is my wife.
Yes, the first book on Amazon, and
First
we'll put
book
that
on
in
Amazon.
our show notes for sure. I want to
Awesome.
read it.
Yeah.
This is my wife, kind of Small and Mighty. So she's a photographer. She's a school counselor, 17 years, but she's also a photographer. So I wanted to give her a shout out because she came in at the time when I'm not going to say I was struggling. I had resolved to being alone. And so she shattered the mold and allowed me to, and helped me rebuild myself. And, you know, that's for 5 years, not knowing that whether I was going to be out in 2020 or whether I was going to be out in 2030.
Yeah.
But she took a chance on me, man. And so I'll send you guys some of the pictures. You know, we got married December 4th of last year, 2021. And we're expecting our first child. So yay.
Woo,
Oh,
baby,
that's so exciting.
baby
And your
girl,
wedding
correct?
pictures are the best. I was like, man, these are the best pictures
Yeah.
ever. She's so beautiful and you look so
Yes, she
happy.
is.
It makes me so happy. Yeah.
She is and we are, man.
She is,
Aw,
and we are.
She is and we are.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and bypass the speed round just because we've
Okay.
had such a great conversation today. And this is a great note to end it on, is baby girl coming. Do we have a name? Do we have a name we're sharing yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
But I'll make sure you guys are the first to know.
Okay.
Oh, good. We love
Thank
that.
you, Maurice,
We
so
love
much for
that.
coming on here and, being here in New Orleans. I'm just in a different environment now. And when I'm around people that have done a lot of time, there's something so special and surreal and just deep heart. Like the head doesn't even get in the way to have a judgment or a concern. It's just the heart just so filled of like, holy crap, like this is, I wish everyone on the planet could experience this kinds of thing, like the conversation we're having with you. So and I'm hoping a lot of people watch this. So thank you so much for being here and sharing with us.
And make sure you have my friend James Jones. You know, he and I are partners on our own podcast.
Okay.
The Reinvention Center that we want to have you guys on. The only thing about it is on the same night, but we're going to change the night for you guys. So I want to have, you two on our show
Thank you. Well, we're every other weekend. We can find a time that
And I
works.
think I'm gonna not do it on Sunday, so I could find another place to
Yeah,
do it instead of in my
easy.
house. So
Yeah.
we can change nights,
We would
no
love
problem at
to.
all.
Get
Y'all
ready
do it
for
every other
some.
week. So y'all do it every other week. So on one of those weeks that you're off, we're going to schedule you guys. So his name is James Jones. He did like 25 years in federal prison. He had 2 life sentences and he's out. And so he and I walked the track talking about doing some of the things that we're doing now.
So
Love
cool.
that.
Good
That's the
job. We're so
best.
proud of you and we're so glad to have met you. And now you're part of our tribe and our family. So get ready. We're going to be texting and checking in. So
Always. I'll
it
be
doesn't
here.
end here.
All right. And whenever you're in Mississippi and Jackson, you want to come up, and my wife and I are going to take you to dinner.
Oh, I can't wait to
Yeehaw.
meet her. I can't wait
Yeah.
to meet her.
That's
Yes, I
exciting.
think I'm gonna take a road trip tomorrow somewhere
So
in
cool.
Mississippi, like an
Lucky.
hour, not that far. So, okay, have a great night,
Thanks,
Maurice.
Maurice. We'll talk to you soon.
You guys take care.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.